gods here. Now pray.
Hello, Smite fans, and welcome to Year 10 of Smite and Season 10 of Competitive Smite at that, as we move into our first big tournament of the year, the SPL Promotion Tournament. We have 10 teams this weekend battling out for only 2 spots to join our already 6 teams that have made it in to the Smite Pro League. It is going to be a packed weekend of gameplay, best of 3s all through the first few days, and then we'll start moving to some of our best of 5 matches on Saturday and Sunday that will promote those 2 teams to the Smite Pro League. And I can't do this up here alone. I'm J-Mac. I got Mifflin joining me on the desk to help me get through our first set of the day and to get you guys kicked off for our big event here, the promotion tournament. Really excited for a lot of the talent that we brought out here this weekend, Mifflin.
There was so much talent, J-Mac, that we actually had to expand the tournament. For those of you who've been keeping track of this scene and what's been going on as we start to move into Season X, it was originally supposed to be, I believe, 8 teams, but there was just so many applications, so many talented rosters that it was expanded out to 10, and now we're going to get a look at some of these teams early on in the week.
I mentioned it briefly, but we do have a very quick little graphic that will help you kind of understand the exact format of this tournament as we throw that one up there for you guys. 10 teams competing out in this event for a double elimination bracket. Our top 2 teams of these 10 will make their way into the Smite Pro League. You'll get to see them for the remainder of the year, so long as some of that talent still sticks up. We've seen some changes that happen throughout the mid-season, but all of that begins at 11 a.m. Eastern Time every single day this weekend, so it's going to be consistently starting at this exact same time there. And of those 10 teams, we can take a quick look at some of the rosters that are going to be jumping up amongst those teams. It's a lot of names to go through. We're starting at our upper-seeded teams there. Niflheim Wargs, a lot of SPL, former SPL, and even some talent that haven't quite made it to SPL with Crimson there in the mid lane, still waiting for his moment. Jump into the Pro League. Gladiators as well, a lot of former SPL talent in there, and another comeuppance in Dude Man Bro there. Eldritch Hounds, a lot of names that you know and love. This is where kind of the big talent lies, is in this top 3, and teams that, at least from what we were able to talk about a couple of weeks ago between the casters, teams that of these 3 we're expecting at least a couple of these ones to be able to make it there, but it's not just these 3. Again, we have 10 rosters to go through as we jump into our second round of them. Aru Scorpions, a lot of powerful EU talent on that team. That's an SCC squad that's been around for some time. Athenian Sages and the Tartarus Titans as well. A lot of powerful names across that squad. We look at some of the players. We actually got to look at Dashboard earlier on in the year during the Salt tournament, where his team was actually able to find a win there. So having a little bit of competitive, at least pedigree in his regard for year 10 to maybe try and bring his team towards a little bit of victory. And that was that was teams 4 through 6. Now we look at teams 7 through 10, the last 4 squads moving up here. And some of the ones that you are going to be seeing today, as they are some of our lower seeded teams, they are going to have to play a little bit of an extra matchup before they can jump in to the remainder of the bracket with it, between the Wardens, the Valkyries, the Tanuki, and the Storm. And you're probably sitting here wondering, it's like, well, J-Mac, there's a couple of SPL team names that were there, the Tartarus Titans, the Valhalla Valkyries. Well, that's the beauty of the new format of Year 10, is some of these team brands have been relegated down to either have to play in for another chance out there, or we might be seeing some additional SCC brand names potentially make it up into the Pro League, Miff.
Could do. I mean, it just really came down to which teams these players want to play under the banner of. If it was available, we gave it over to them, and now they have to fight it out and prove that that brand should step back up into the SPL. I'm very excited for some of these matchups. In particular, even on this page, I know they're the lower-seeded teams, but the Valkyries, I think, a squad that you really need to keep your eyes on, as well as the Wardens. This Wardens roster, anytime LA owns on the screen, I mean, I got to gas him up. This guy has just got a knack for finding his way into these tournaments and making a big splash.
Now, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago we had all the casters sit down around the round table and we discussed all the current SPL teams that have made it in, as well as made predictions for this tournament specifically. You can see that pretty much everybody unanimously came to the agreement that the Wargs are probably a favorite team to win out this tournament. And amongst a few of us, we are having the Hounds there, but Mifflin and Trelly, the ones who were a little bit different in that regard. Gladiators, a prediction for Mifflin. Scorpions, there for Trelly, Eldritch Hounds for the remainder of the casters. So we'll see if we're all right in at least the regard of the Niflheim Wargs, and then maybe if we have a few people who are right as far as our second, or if we're going to see an upset potentially come out there amongst some of these other squads, Myth.
But I think the through line is that all the casters agree most of these teams are competing for second place. It just feels like there is a clear delineation at the top, and then otherwise maybe a thinner margins for that second place spot. The Aru Scorpions, I know Charlie's the only one that gives them a shout out. You can see that they've already progressed on to the second matchup as they are one of our higher seeded teams. I think that's one you really need to keep your eyes on. I made the mistake at the tail end of Season 9 of sleeping on the European SEC a little bit. I'm never going to do it again. Those guys are just talented top to bottom.
Now, as you can see, this is our double elimination bracket. Our first couple of matchups with the Valkyries and the Yomi Tanuki, the Callan Wardens, the Storm. Those teams will be playing to move up against the Wargs and the Gladiators for later on matches. But speaking about that second match with the Callan Wardens, we did put a tweet out on our Smite Pro Twitter if you want to go over there and follow that for any kinds of updates. That will still be classified as match 2, but due to player flight issue, we are moving that to the 4th scheduled match of the day, but will still be considered match 2, at least for bracket purposes. So it will be a little bit before we actually see that Callan Wardens and Xibalba Storm match be played. Instead, it will be the Eldritch Hounds and the Tartarus Titans moving up a slot, along with the Aru Scorpions and the Athenian Sages there. But our first one is the Valhalla Valkyries, a team brand name that you may recognize as far as that goes, but some players that you may not fully know if you haven't been following the EU SCC. But if you have been following, a lot of these players out there that you should be recognizing. Warchi, a player who may not have been jumping into the competitive history as much, but definitely has made his name known across the lands as well. And then Rottwen, TheRayShadow, WorstTurttle, and NILLL rounding out the roster for the Valkyries.
Yeah, I think WorstTurttle and Rottwen, probably the ones you want to keep your eyes on a little bit more so, have been tested more recently. Rottwen in particular has just really impressed me in his run in the support role. We've seen him play at times subbing in for guys like Trixtank back on the Hex Mambo, and that was a squad that was already looking very good, and he kept them looking good. So being able to play to the level of Trixtank at times with that team, I think bodes well for the chances of the Valhalla Valkyries as they look to progress throughout the rest of this tournament. WorstTurtle out of the jungle. The main thing I've been saying about the Season X meta is that it is a jungle carry meta, and when WorstTurtle was playing at his best, it was hyper-aggressive play, loves to get active early on. I'm thinking of things like the Fenrir or things that can just get active and involved essentially around level 3 seems to be the best case for these junglers. So I'll be keeping my eyes not only on the pace of the game, but also on those players in particular. WorstTurtle, his god pool, very expansive, really does fit the meta right now. It's a good time to be a Valkyries member.
I mean, jungle is just so oppressive these days in Year 10.
Calm down.
I mean, it feels like if you're a mid laner, you're getting tapped by them. If you're a carry, you got about 3 seconds before they show up. But kind of hoping you have a little bit of a crit battle between them out there. So I'm excited to see what comes out from some of these teams in our first real big competitive look with them. Now that we've had some time, and this is the important part. You know, we had the Salt tournament that happened like the weekend that Year 10 came out. So everybody was still kind of figuring out what's the meta, how do we, actually move about the map.
Yet.
We didn't know nothing at that time. Now we've had about a month or so to really sit down. These players have had their opportunity with their teams to really start working towards this. So I'm really excited to see what these players can do on the map now that we have had some time to actually have the map develop, the jungle pathing, kind of where everybody wants to line out. Going up against them, the Yomi Tanuki, though not with names that you would traditionally see with Yomi Tanuki. I think about this team and immediately comes to mind is players like Magic Feet, who used to kind of run with this squad, but different look for these guys. Shipigami, Promise, not Spreen, who was on this roster. Instead, it's XD001 subbing in for Spreen in that mid lane, and then Grave and Rundas, a couple of players who also got to participate in that Salt tournament. Rundas was playing over there. Had a bit of a stranger god pool in his regard, but it feels more like a team of trying to break their way into the SPL, especially maybe even for some trying to break their way into the SCC.
Yeah, a bunch of competitive upstarts, I'd say. Rundas, Grave, XD, Promise, guys you may have seen here or there streaming or in your ranked games but haven't quite made the jump to competitive Smite play. This is going to be a great time to do it. Something I had talked about during the caster roundtable when we were discussing the odds of this team is maybe not a team that you're favoriting to win, but a team where individual performances could really light up a path for them as they progress and try and make their name known and have these higher seeded teams or these more renowned players start to take notice of them. Yomi Tanuki, as of now, it's who's going to get the come up and a redemption tour for some of these players as well. We've seen Shipigami in the SCC at times, had a brief stint with Privative out of the duo lane, I think Primitive, one of the more talented supports, especially out in North America, so a good deal of learning could have happened there. Otherwise, a team that has fallen short at times to emotional play. Shiπigami in particular seems to get frustrated at times. Grave, just now coming off the back of a competitive ban, wants to keep his head on his shoulders straight as well. So I'm excited to see how they play. It hasn't been a team that's been together for an incredibly long time. This is an emergent meta team. They have to figure out what's our identity, how are we going to approach this set, and if we make it through this, how are we going to approach the rest of the weekend. I'm sure there are going to be plenty of eyes on them as we see them play out. They are one of the lower seeded teams here during the promotional tournament. So I think one that has low expectations, but certainly has very high upset potential.
And I think that's an important point that you brought up there, is this is a group of players for really a lot of these squads out here. Pretty much every team out here has not had a very long time with each other. I mean, we put out the announcement shortly after Worlds for teams to start forming rosters and try and get themselves to the SPL with those rosters. If it didn't make it out, well, now they've got to play together in order to try and get there at this point. So it's teams that have not had a lot of time together competitively at all, have only been able to play maybe scrims against each other or jump into some rank queues with each other. So for some of the teams out there, you do have players that have played with each other for a little bit. I think over at least towards that Athenian Sages squad, having a little bit of synergy, at least in that regard there. So curious to see what will come through, especially with the picks and bans. What's going to get picked up? What's going to get left behind as we jump in to the P's and B's for our first big competitive match of Year 10 between the Yomi Tanuki and the Valhalla Valkyries in our SPL promotion tournament.
You know, if I've learned anything from Ranked, and here's a tidbit, don't learn much from Ranked when it's coming to competitive play, but if I've learned anything, it's that magical hunters are the meta right now. They've got high early game boxing potential. They scale into the late game incredibly well. Some of the new rings, Cyclopean ring, incredibly powerful. They're great in team fights, and for the most part, have an okay degree of safety. Only really susceptible to those jungle ganks, and jungles will be ganking early. So I'm surprised to see only one magical hunter banned out so far. The Valkyries, though, they'll keep us in line, what we've become, I suppose, accustomed to seeing if you've been watching any of the streams in Smite in Season 10 recently. Double magical hunter ban to start things off.
Now, maybe unfortunate for the Valkyries is there's 4 magical hunters, and they can only ban 3 of them if they want to keep that up. It is Olorun and Sol so far for the Valkyries in the ban column. Thor and Ymir on the opposite side. And with how powerful the assassins have been over in the jungle, Thor definitely of staple head whenever it comes to playing in that role there. Maui joins the ranks even after eating a couple of nerfs from the Worlds run that we got to see of this god. Still seems that he does have just enough in the kit for teams to be able to want to ban him away. And then joining the ranks of the magical hunter bans, all 3 that the Valkyries can ban away, Freya joins there. So Chronos still left open, but Chronos probably the only one of those magical ADCs who's played more like a maze these days than a hunter.
Do not
you generally want to see Chronos towards mid. Has pretty decent wave clear. You can build him standard mage and then move into the nimble glyph and stack up a little bit of attack speed there. No surprise to me to see Yomi Tanuki go ahead and prioritize elsewhere, considering the majority of magical hunters that are mainly viable have already been taken off the table, and so instead it's eyes towards Yemoja, a pick that had fallen off towards the tail end of Season 9. Didn't
Go
see a whole
forth,
lot
my
of it during the
children,
Worlds
and
run
take
either,
over this
but
land.
has high pressure, good sustain, can lock down some of these less mobile targets. Guan Yu in particular, once he goes into that cavalry charge, toss up a wall, all of a sudden he's stuck there. You can almost mitigate his ultimate.
Time is on our
Wouldn't be
side.
surprised to see some early Phantom Shell pickups for the Valkyries just to facilitate that Guan Yu getting into the backline a little bit more often. This is surprising, though. I thought Chronos would likely go unpicked. It's a late-game ticking time bomb. Has one of the best structure clears in the game. A general weakness of magical hunters is their inability to deal with structures easily. Chronos does not count himself amongst those. It's really Sol and Chronos that could dominate in that regard. But it isn't going to be Chronos towards mid, at least I'll assume so now. Instead, Vulcan locked in. Triple magical stack up from Yomi Tanuki in their first 3 should
Athena.
simplify the ban phase for the Valks.
Yeah, maybe look towards a couple of assassins or go towards some of those solo lane picks, potentially if you're banning for the Valkyries. But it'll be Guan Yu, Tiamat, and Athena on the opposite side. The Athena was something that was starting to rise up towards the tail end of Season 9, whether that be in the support or, like we saw on the World stage, we even saw it go into the jungle a couple of times, probably by Lasbra during some of those Worlds matchups there. The Guan Yu for a lot of sustain in the solo lane, kind of. Does it feel like Guan Yu is almost like an answer to Yemoja? Like, they got Yemoja, that's a lot of sustain on their comp. We need something that can give us almost as easy application of sustain?
To a certain degree, yes. I don't think you generally say, they have healers, we need healers. That's not generally how that one pans out. It's more so, what does Guan Yu bring to my draft? Sure, a little bit of healing, but it's that dive potential, the ability to get into that back line, the survivability, the defense shred, really start to add up, and he fits into the majority of compositions. Guan Yu essentially just a plug-and-play pick, and one that can be left alone on an island in that soul lane pretty easily. So maybe not a direct answer to the Yemoja, but an answer nonetheless. It should be able to help you out in these elongated battles around the Fire Giant, around the Gold Tree, when sustain starts to become a major talking point, a major topic of conversation. Otherwise, you bring up the fact that this Athena could likely find herself in the jungle, or maybe just potentially find herself there. But I think with some of the class changes in Season 10, for those of you who haven't been keeping up with patch notes, it's been a little while now, every single class gets a buff as they start to progress through the game. Assassins get flat pen. I want to see Assassins in the jungle. It just feels like they get so much power early on. The ability to essentially 100 to 0 at 2 items in your build is not something we've had the opportunity to watch too often in the last couple of years. Now junglers really at the top of the pecking order. Let's get them on Assassins. Let's get them on something they can play early on. And for the Valkyries, that should be a major, major key looking at the composition for Yomi Tanuki. Chronos and Vulcan, both picks that take a whole lot of time to scale. Abuse them while they're weak. Naja can do exactly that.
4 assassin bans for these two teams as we jump through the second banning phase. It was Serket, Nemesis, Pele, and Fenrir all banned out, leaving open the Naja for the Valkyries. Though lacking maybe a bit of that burst follow-up damage on the tail end of the Windfire wheels. Tiamat not necessarily known for that big 1,000+ damage ultimate that'll hit you on landing, but still some decent damage nonetheless. Now, currently being hovered by the Yomi Tanuki is the Jormungandr. That's definitely a Rundas special. He was playing that in the Salt tournament at the beginning of the year as well, so that was actually consistently banned away from him during that event. And with it locked in, that is a 4 magical stack for Yomi Tanuki and potentially Bastet as their lone physical damage dealer. Now, Bastet has a lot of damage up through her kit, but how do you feel about a 4 magic stack for the Yomi Tanuki as the game scales through, Myth?
I think there are decent pen options for mages. The build generally starts to lack in pen until about that 3rd, 4th item, so if the Valkyries are able to stack up their defense early on, could make an already weak early game for Tanuki a little bit weaker. But 4 magical drafts, 4 physical drafts, I don't really concern myself with them too much. My primary concern with Yomi Tanuki is the ease of execution of this composition. How are you starting fights consistently? Is it going to be Jormungandr going into stealth every single time? Are you praying that this Bastet can land an ultimate max range every single time? Yemoja, for the most part, going to be a backline facilitator in the team fight, and has great people to facilitate. Vulcan, Chronos, if you can keep them alive, will likely just outpour damage. But this is a very difficult 5-on-5 stack composition for Yomi Tanuki. If we're talking 30 minutes in and it's a Fire Giant stare down, I just really favor the Valks simply because their draft is much easier to play. Dash Confound every single time. Have Guan Yu start with the cavalry charge. If Naja can pick up even a tank in a late game team fight, if he goes down that pen build, and even with the flat pen that you pick up just by nature of being an assassin, could really start to shred the front line of Yomi Tanuki. I think the Valks have got themselves something that plays easily and plays well, whereas Yomi Tanuki, their win conditions are much narrower.
Now, while it's 4 magical and the Bastet is lone physical, there's at least a pseudo-traditional hunter on the side of Yomi Tanuki with a Chronos. You go through, and that's your tower shredder when it comes to late game. I'm looking at the Valkyries now. We have Naja and then a Camazotz following at the end of the draft here. Which of these two, I guess I should ask, would you rather see go into the ADC position for this team? Which of these 2 assassins would you rather see in that carry role alongside this Athena?
Camazotz, I suppose. Screech is at least a pretty decent clear tool, so you can deal with the wave relatively easily. The chase down potential, the landing should be okay. Naja, of course, we've seen him in the soul lane here or there throughout Season 9, so also has the capacity to succeed in lane, but Camazotz, I think, just much better at it, has great chase down potential, and one that you probably favor in the 1v1 up against Chronos. Whereas Naja, I mean, you sash to initiate, Chronos returns with the stop time, and all of a sudden you're just stuck in place if you haven't got your ultimate available. So between the 2 assassins, I think I would prefer to see Camazotz in the duo lane. That said, I would have probably just preferred to see someone with ranged damage as well. It's going to be very difficult to actually deal with structures, towers, things along those lines if the Valkyries find themselves in that position.
Oh, like it wouldn't be year 10, it wouldn't be a turn if we didn't see a little bit of spice, at least even at the beginning of said matchups. Remember, it is a double elimination tournament for these teams, so a loss in this matchup does not mean the end of the tournament road does not mean the end of their chances at promoting up into the SPL. It just means that their road is a little bit more difficult and becomes a little bit harder for these teams to actually make it through, as they have to fight through a whole other end of the bracket where they don't get a second chance at that point. That is their second opportunity there. Mifflin, looking at game number 1 between the Yomi Tanuki and the Valkyries, kind of which one do you favor as this game starts to scale up a little bit later?
You know, when it was the 5-stack of Yomi Tanuki and I was just looking at the first 4 of the Valkyries, I was like 90-10 favoring the Valkyries, right? We talked about the team fight, how it executes very well, and that still is there. The team fight is still incredibly strong for the Valkyries. But with the siege as it is, if Yomi Tanuki's allowed space, they've actually got very strong base defense. It's really simplifies the game when you're stacked up on your own Phoenix, on your own structures. You don't have to worry about initiation so much because you know the Valkyries will have to eventually walk into you if they want to take out a bird. So I still do favor the Valkyries, and I expect them to win out in the early game, but if they can't build up a significant enough lead, I think Yomi Tanuki in a defense situation could stall this game out an incredibly long time and potentially just find themselves scaling into a win.
Already in year 10, we've got a sparks flying startup of the game. Let's throw it over to game number 1 with Dulcin and Gormizer.
We have got 6 teams in the SPL right now, and by the end of this weekend, we will add 2 more, and we're going to start it. The Yomi Tanuki versus the Valhalla Valkyries, Dulcin, Gore, and Doug to kick off the year here. In year number 10, season 10 in the SPL, Gore really excited.
Season X.
Season X, that's right. It's much more impactful when you word it that way. I'm excited to get really into the throes of this weekend. Double elimination tournament, we have got a lot of matches to roll through, and we have got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
In year 10 of the SPL, you're watching this for the first time since season 9, and you're wondering what in the world is going on. Jungle starts totally different now. You can leash camps. Gore, it's so difficult not to get very granular in the weeds of things super early, but we're getting early glimpses at how these games are going to start.
I will say that's maybe one of my favorite things about the starts is the dragging of the camps together, right? Like getting your green buff, purple buff all at the XP, grabbing everybody, all 3 camps that you possibly can on the right-hand side and meeting at experience, just to make sure that your team's going to be able to get it. Again, it's for me, it's just fun, I guess, really, having like that much PvE at the very beginning of the game. But also the experience that it gets you. I mean, you're seeing it. People are going to be level 2 by the time they hit lane instead of taking a little longer like it did last time. And that could be a really big impact difference. I mean, if you talk about level 1 clear gods versus level 2 clear gods, what kind of abilities it brings into it, especially if you're talking about some of these supports. I mean, Athena suddenly being able to get shield wall and taunt by the time you start lane, as opposed to having to wait for one. You get a little more aggression, I think. And you also get to see, at least for one of these teams, that range damage maybe pay off more than anything. I think the clear between a Yemoja and a Chronos here is going to do a little more than Rottwen and Warchi are on an Athena and a Naja. Although I will give them the credit, they both have the AoE autos in their attack chain.
Well, we've seen a lot of this already in games in year 10, and it's been a level 2, level 3 gank from junglers over to dual lane more often than not. Grave rotates in, and Yomi Tanuki swing first. It's Promise with first blood on the Yemoja. Not ideal, however, you're going to be happy to just get a little lane pressure building up. And then the extra buff on the left side of the map allows you to snowball a bit more effectively. Gore, a lot to look at, you know, in some of my games, albeit probably not as high tier as the matches we're going to be watching this weekend. A lot of conversation around the shards that players are picking up early on. The cooldown shard, maybe the overwhelming favorite here for the Yomi Tanuki and a few members of the Valhalla Valkyries, but Warchi on Naja ADC, have to talk about that, has gone the attack speed one, where Shipigami has opted to steal away some protections with theirs. So, little gamesmanship going on. Some of the early relic choices.
I actually really like it too, because especially when you've been thinking about the Carapace shard, in my mind it seems very supportive, but I like the way they've swapped it, because you can just do something like that. I mean, if you think about it, who's hitting the autos the most here? It's going to be Shipigami, right? You're going to be weaving a lot of abilities there for Promise. So Promise, with this kind of shard choice, gets a lot more of the stuns active, heals active early on. If you're thinking of like your tier 3 meditations, very similar, right? Getting that what is it, like 0.5 seconds off every tick for like 3 seconds feels really solid. And then being able to have Shipigami for these early fights get that little bit of extra damage. Admittedly, didn't even need it in that fight. Goes under the tower like it's nothing. But that showcases, I think, some of the reason, if you were wondering why all the magical hunters were getting banned out. This is maybe a good showcase. Chronos looking pretty solid, but also just the way that they've itemized. I think in dual lane so far, it has felt really solid. Although beads I noticed used by Shippigami here, it's making me a little more worried about what the next few minutes could be. Up until, you know, even with the time that it takes for rewind to go off, it's a dangerous position to be in. So I wouldn't mind seeing WorstTurttle prioritize this left side a little harder.
Yeah, should have got me on the Chronos. You'll get the rewind up now, thanks to that level lead. Goes back, finishes up Telkines. Tends to be the first item that we've seen these magical AD carries go towards as well. Cyclopean Ring, of course, one of the new items here in
Feels good,
in
too.
year 10. Feels really good. You get that. One of the first few items in the build on this Chronos. And really get things rolling. This Yemoja really strong in the early parts of this game here, Gore. Off to a 2-0 start. Able to apply some pressure to Rottwen and Warchi. And that's where all the action has been seen. Might see a bit more. No junglers over here on left. I wonder if, I'm just doing some theory crafting here. I wonder if Warchi was hoping that they would build up a bit more pressure. I'll hold up this thought. It's a slight gank from WorstTurttle towards right, forces Rundas into the Jormungandr ult. But you can't, you know, the bastions around the towers, you can use ring toss on that. Allows for a couple extra bounces. I'm wondering if maybe that's what Warchi was hoping for. Have not been playing on the other side of the map at all.
It's that weird balance where, in theory, especially if you go back to the days of an assassin, specifically Najah as your support.
Hello. Goodbye.
Very easy. Grave shows up. Yeah, I guess that's a pretty one, straight and forward. You get this Najah, you've got a stun, you've got a lot that as a support feels really solid. And in theory, when you have someone like Set or another assassin over there, you get very good pressure, even though you're able to, or not ranged as most of the hunters were at the time in those metas. The downside I see here, and Mifflin mentioned it on the desk, was just clear, right? Yes, in your attack chains for both your hunter and your support here, your carry and your support, you have AoE autos in those chains, but it's not going to outpace the Yemoja. It's not going to outpace the Chronos. So already, the first few minutes just aren't going to be your forte.
Right.
And then to get a couple of kills on your side, it feels like if you're trying to play around the bastions, something that would have been really nice, but probably not. Plus, I mean, you have to factor in, look at the split that you have on the bastions as they are. 15% mitigation to the towers that they are protecting at the very beginning. And you're already missing both if you're over in the duel, and you're missing one over here. So it makes it easier to kill the towers. It's something that admittedly is maybe some fodder that saves your tower from being down at this point already from aggression, but Shippigami is not relaxing.
Now, Rundas got a kill a moment ago. Grave was over there, I believe, for the assist. I want to yell just a bit, and we'll look back at this kill. I think this might end up just being really simple.
Grave is there.
It's a rude, a pullback, and a bit of damage. And the spit from Rundas, actually. Last bit there, and the last bit of mana. I want to yell a bit if I can, Gore. So I've been slamming the ranked streets a little bit. I don't know if you've seen that. It's been a long journey. Buff secured on the left side of the map, thanks to Grave, who's been all over the place, by the way. This Bastet's been just about everywhere. I now, in a couple solo lane games that I've queued into, have had to go against magical solo laners who are rushing this tablet right off the start. It is so annoying. They walk forward, they proc it, they get their stack. I'm down to half HP off of one wave clear. They dance in the little totem, they get their damage boost. They in this case, spit on me, and I'm down to half. And it feels like such an effective build right now, and Rundas seems to agree. That's my little soapbox.
Here's your problem.
A build that we're starting to see a bit more.
You're over in solo lane.
I didn't queue into it. I get auto-filled, and then they stick me in solo, and I'm playing like Mulan. No, I'm playing Odin against an Artio who's got tablet, and everything I'm doing is getting canceled. And look, I mean, granted he's behind, but NILLL can't do anything. He's down to half, and he's got no mana, and Rundas has just got infinite pressure, it feels like. And that means the Yomi Tanuki can pull Gold Fury over on the left side of the map. It's down to half. But Rottwen and Warchi, they're here. That's a triple taunt in, and the Yomi Tanuki confirm the Gold Fury on an Earth Shaker from XD, and there's a kill on the back end as well. A fantastic rotation in from mid. And that'll keep the ball going. Another one for the Yomi Tanuki and the Valhalla Valkyries. They've got to get out, but it'll be a stun over the wall and a double kill for XD. And the Tanuki have blown this game open.
Friendly reminder that upon like submission, XD wasn't the guy on the roster. Like he's filling in here, dude. This is a sub, and he's looking really good. Like the Vulcan, admittedly, towards the end of last year, we talked a lot about this god, but just being able to see it again at least gives us something to latch onto, something familiar from the last 6 months, 7 months. For those of you who have been watching, and you get a lot of damage, but what you really get to see right there is what he brings to the fight that unfortunately someone like a Tiamat is just not going to, which is a lot more secure, a lot more burst damage in a small area. And if you get into a fight like that, unfortunately for Rottwen, there's not much you can do. Promise throws up the walls, so you aren't even able to escape the old-fashioned way. I think that was just a very clean fight from the Yomi Tanuki. I don't want to say draft diff because I think there's a lot more going into it, but you started this game off already falling behind because of some of the things in the draft, I think, for the Valkyries. Now you're starting to see where that is really going to hurt them, right? You get a good rotation. I mean, Graves going to have a lot of damage. XD is going to be able to throw up a ton in small areas, and Promise creates small areas for this team. I think that Yemoja, while we were surprised throughout all of last year when she kind of fell off, I think this is showcased why she's still a really good support to be able to throw forward. And I'm really excited to see what the Tanuki are able to do with it. I mean, a lead like this, you get the Fury. Soon the Runic Bomb, the Pyromancer is going to be available. You can try and pick that up. You're talking about tower sieging. I think there's a lot of opportunity for them to take this lead and really roll forward with it.
Yeah, Gore, I think dual lane may end up being the lane I'm most excited to see throughout the course of this weekend. We've got some really talented duo lanes playing in the SPL promotion tournament. Right now, Shipigami and Promise are doing it all. Warchi at 0-3 is going to get some help from his jungler, WorstTurttle. Over on left, but Shipigami is so strong. A double stun from the Chronos and nearly has enough damage, but doesn't. And it's WorstTurtle on the gank needed for the Valhalla Valkyries. Warchi able to survive, but can Grave get done here? We're tower diving. And right back out we go. Yomi Tanuki unable to trade back, and a little life from the Valks on left.
And honestly, needed at this point, right? You get both the relics, you get the shard down as well for Shippigami, so you're feeling like you had a very accomplished gank just off that. You force the rewind. Admittedly, it gets a little close for you.
No!
And no, there it all falls apart!
Oh, man.
I was just going to say, you got out alive. That was the part that mattered the most. Your dual lane finally got something done and was able to retreat. You get a kill onto WorstTurtle. It feels like you finally have a grasp on the game, but to lose 2 kills after, and to put them on the enemy jungler, and all the positives that I was trying to weave there for the Valkyries falls apart.
Yeah, you thought you may have slowed Shippigami down. You get a grasp on the game. Shippigami picks up the second ring on this Chronos, well underway in this build. Once you get that second ring, it really feels good. Yomi Tanuki, you can call him on easy street. They've knocked down a tower over on right. It's been a very quiet solo lane, but Rundas has a 2-level lead. Killed off that tower. But really everything's funneled through duo. And Warchi's gone, a pretty slow build here, Gore. Finished up Transcendence a couple minutes ago. Only has a 20 or so stacks on it. We'll get that building hopefully quickly here.
Warchi's wondering what it's like to have a finished Transcendence. Like, fully stacked.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're going to be wondering for a minute,
for a while.
I think. Just the pacing of this game. Though, if you stall out the wave, you might be able to sit back and build up some of those stacks. But you're ceding a lot of pressure for stuff just like this. I'm not sure the Valhalla Valkyries in a spot to fight over this Primal Fury anyway, especially not with Rundas over on left, and a simple Primal Fury for the Yomi Tanuki. So maybe what you are hoping on, Gore, now is some type of scaling for the Valks. You're hoping this Transcendence feels good. And TheRayShadow's gone into Tablet as well, and so there's some stacking for this Tiamat that needs to be done. You might already be angling towards late game.
I mean, at this point, especially, I mean, it's 9,000
We're doing everything.
Right? They've got the lead to work with. I don't think you can fight the Pyromancer. I think the only time as the Valkyries you can step up and not farm right now is if they're going for a Fire Giant. And honestly, I don't even know if you go for that, right? 13 minutes in, Pyro going down, you get the Runic Bomb there on Promise, so more than likely, either that tier 1 and mid is just forfeit, or there's going to be some really good opportunities for a tier 2. soon for the Tanuki. At the pace they're going, and specifically with the lead they have cultivated at this point, I mean, you are in Fire Giant conversation territory.
Yep.
I don't care that it's only 13 minutes in. You've got enough of a lead. You've been taking every objective, and there's not much else on the map for you to fight for. And there's not a lot the Valkyries can do if you choose that fight. They do need to step up, I think, if it starts sub 20 minutes. But it's risky if you do. I mean, you go in, maybe you get a really good play from Warchi. You can isolate someone, but they don't really have the follow-up that they have built this draft for. So unfortunately, I think the Valkyries, again, just find themselves in a really awkward spot that I can't figure out what their team fight truly wants to do, and if it would even be successful at this big of a deficit.
Well, so much of this tournament, I think, is going to be about establishing momentum, right? It's a long grind. Yomi Tanuki have at least done that in game 1. Valhalla Valkyries, I mean, a fan favorite. You know, a lot of eyes on this team. Warchi, of course, a big following. A lot of fans watching this game. Rottwen, over the course of the last couple of years in the SEC, really made a name for themselves.
Yeah.
And been fun to watch. Or best of 3, so game 1 is not just it for this set, but now with that Runic Bomb core, you're right. I think some of these objectives become a bit more viable if they weren't already. Beads off the Vulcan, so good value there from Rottwen. And speaking of this Runic Bomb, you know, I suppose in a game where things are really heavily lopsided, you can look more at some of the stuff here in year 10.
I'm bad at using it.
Got it
What
right,
I've
I know.
learned in season 10.
Gotta just be a net increase in value for Pyro, right? I mean, before you get the speed buff out of base, now you get this big 1,000 true damage burst to objectives and towers. You can use it against enemies if you want, knockback and a little bit of damage against enemy gods, but confirmation tool for whatever team is able to grab that. And so Pyro steals, little things like that, Gore, I think over the course of the year here in Season 10 of the SPL, could have some fun moments with the Runic Bomb.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunities for it. Honestly, I'm not even surprised to see Prom is holding on to it, right? I had mentioned using it potentially on this tier 1, which
Well, doesn't time out,
if
right?
you really need to. But yeah, like, you're not really pressured to use it right now. You can hold on to it for a Phoenix if you really want, and at the rate that they've been clearing objectives, in theory, you could have 2 stacked up by then. If they really slow down, maybe I guess 3. That would be obnoxious.
I wonder.
I think with the lead they have, this is going to be an easy tower to pick up without it.
Oh, he's dropping it.
They're going to drop it anyway. And it's just such an easy chunk to be able to clear out.
Rottwen's here on the defense. Remember, the debuff that gets applied now is worn out, but Runic Bomb #1 of year 10. Now used for the Yomi Tanuki to grab the mid lane tier 1 tower to 10,000 gold lead at 16 minutes. You think this game has gone poorly? It sure has. Valks have done a nice job though, Gore. They've turtled up a bit on their own side of the map. So where the early game has not gone well and the mid game not going much better, the stemming of the kills has at least been okay for the Valks over the last handful of minutes. But it's going to be another Gold Fury, and Pyromancer's going to come up shortly after that. This is one of those very methodical type games,
Yeah.
Gore, that you tend to see when, you know, I'm not making any sweeping statements just yet, but it's the type of game with very lopsided opponents where it gets out of control early and you just check every single box, and there's no chance for the Valkyries to fight back. You look back at game 1 and wonder, okay, where could we have had an opportunity? We're not going to fight over this Pyro. We're not going to fight over the Gold Fury. You're maybe hoping for Miracle Phoenix defense now, but Runic Bomb in hand and 10,000 gold lead, Fire Giant, that much more simple for the Tanuki.
I honestly think that we're in a spot right now. If you're the Valkyries, like, you're first off not very happy. The first 17 minutes of your tournament life this week has started this way. I think that, like you said, you're looking no Fire Giant buff on the Tanuki, maybe tier 2 defense. Fire Giant buff, you're sitting back with the Phoenixes at this point. It feels a little early to say it, just given what we've seen kind of throughout the last few years. But with this kind of lead, the Tanuki have a grip on everything. I mean, you're lucky if you can even get your own jungle buffs at this point. I think speeds are the safest just because of how far back they are, where the line of scrimmage on the map, that safety net for the Tanuki of going too far is probably around those speed buffs. But purple, red, green, blue, all of them pretty easily taken if you're the Tanuki, not to mention all the neutral objectives. I mean, at this point, you just need the Fire Giant. maybe a pick to really open up the door and start knocking down what is the rest of the objective standing up for the Valkyries.
Well, Valks are not going to rotate over to left. NILLL was already here,
Oh,
so it's WorstTurttle.
man.
That's a beautiful Rivers Rebuke. XD will pick up the kill, and it looks like the Yomi Tanuki are going to head back towards the Fire Giant as well. We'll see. This is now data collection for us in the early goings of year 10. How these runic bombs are going to get used. You imagine objective secure. Promise holds on to it, actually doesn't need it. WorstTurttle was zoned out wonderfully. Warchi will continue to push down left. Picked up the Transcendence. And the map now, the Yomi Tanukis for the taking. And I guess you do save it. If you feel like you can knock down this tier 2 easily, Gore, you're right. Drop it on a Phoenix, slow down that attack speed a bit, and siege things up.
And if you really need to, especially, well, no, never mind, Chronos is showing up. I was like, I don't see it. He's not the cluster of 3. He's coming a little late. I think you can get this without having to drop the bomb. I mean, pretty easily, especially with minions there. So if that's the pace you're clearing tier 2s out, your runic bomb at this point is just an opener, right? It is just an easy either burst to kill a Phoenix, a burst to open the Phoenix, a little zone to clear off beside the Phoenix. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities, I think, for Promise to make use of it. I wouldn't be surprised if the team is going to do much more of this, right? Back by get your power spikes. You're
Just
up.
try. Oh, sorry.
I mean, straight up tier 3 items over some of the other people on the Valkyries. So you are in a really good spot to just continue pushing down. Whether it's left, you join up with the Jormungandr, especially with the size of the map now. I feel like that Phoenix is worth even more because of how far away it can feel.
Yep. This is
I
a
think
big
this
map,
is a
isn't it?
really, really easy time for the Tanuki to just walk up, flex the strength they have. There's not much the Valkyries are going to be able to say at the tier 2 line.
No, you're still looking for some stacking to happen. Rottwen with the Prophetic Cloak. The new items, one of the new items here in year 10. Takes a little while to get all, you gotta get 15 physical, 15 magical. Takes a bit for that to get fully stacked up. Tablet still stacking for TheRayShadow, if my eyes don't deceive me. I believe 7 stacks on that right now. So you get some value, of course, from it immediately, but as far as full power, it's gonna take a little bit of time. What a pull from Grave! Right down Main Street, and that is maybe now completely opened the door to the siege if it weren't already creaked open anyway. Rundas into the World Serpent, then a chase down from the rest of the Yomi Tanuki to follow. Phoenix is an afterthought. Runic Bomb used by Promise. And the door, Gore, I think was already halfway open, slammed open on a nice pull-in from Grave.
Yeah, we're talking,
you
you mentioned like foot in the door. You're lucky if this is like a plywood door, no lock. Even if it was, you just kind of shoulder it and it falls apart and disintegrates. I mean, this is not the kind of position to defend in with the left side open and exposed, especially with the lead they have. There's not a lot of wiggle room for the Valkyries here. That tier 2 in mid might as well not exist. The only thing that it's not doing right now is giving gold over to the Tanuki. And in the next 2 minutes, I expect that to maybe be a little bit of a problem. That's the other big thing that I think is a huge change this year, has been the Fire Giant timing. No longer 5-minute respawn, 4-minute buff, 4-minute respawn, 4-minute buff. Comes back the minute it comes down. I think that we're in a really good spot. I mean, you've got 2 minutes to play with here. You might not even need the second fire.
Wow, Runic Bomb, again, opens the door. I mean, it was burning fast anyway. Shippigami's got Poly on Chronos and a couple of rings, Spear of the Magus for some percent pen. Runic Bomb just, makes it an auto or 2 quicker for the Yomi Tanuki. That's a really good point, though, Gore, around FG and the timing around it. Because in the past, that extra minute of downtime has allowed for usually the team that's on the back foot to take a breather, to reset, to apply some ward coverage, hopefully, and to clear another wave or 2 of fire minions in this case. Now you just straight up don't get that opportunity. Now you're immediately forced to step forward and immediately forced to fight over it. They won't, of course, because they're busy clearing out the fire minions that we just talked about. This is methodical from the Tanuki, Gore. At 23 minutes, we might be just 1 push away from this game coming to a close, and I think the Valk's probably ready for that after the way Game 1 has gone.
Yeah, I think at this point, as much as I hate to say it, especially this early on, you're probably thinking a little bit about your draft and the things that have got to change for your team to find success. And I think a lot of it is going to be not having range damage in the physical, being able to get something with more clear in the duo lane. I mean, you were talking about it, being excited for it. I think the duo lane is very important because look at the damage output from just Shiπigami there, ignoring what XD can do. It is insane, and that's just the Chronos right now.
Well, just a moment ago, not on this pick, but the same thing that happened on the left side, Phoenix. Grave doing the "you guys stink" across the player booths from one another. So much personality rolls through in weekends like this, especially with these players with something to prove. Yomi Tanuki, they've proven something in game 1. That a 3-man stun from NILLL won't matter. WorstTurttle, the only kill for the Valhalla Valkyries in this game may end that way, as somehow the backline has survived. Shiπigami will add one more, and there's still a World Serpent from Rundas to buy just a bit more space. Fire minions making their way down mid and left. Soon to be right as well.
See, that Phoenix took a little longer because they didn't have an extra runic bomb.
That's right, they didn't have
for
the
that
runic
one.
bomb.
No, I mean, look, the kills they have, the setup they have, this is all just formalities. You still have a good cluster if you're the Valkyries. It's not easy to just walk in and kill the Titan here. I mean, you got to look at it. They've had a 10,000 plus gold lead for 10, 15 minutes now.
Yeah.
And it has been too difficult to try and break things down. Left side Phoenix in a respawn soon.
Oh no.
I like the clean play from the Tanuki, but if they get a kill, it should be done.
Look, Warchi's 2 levels down, and Rundas is, you know, a full item ahead. I still look at that damage. Well, he's gotten Soul Reaver as well, so not everything to glean from this type of build, but a double kill from XD, not too bad of a way to close things out here in game number 1. And I've loved what I've seen from the Yomi Tanuki. They were aggressive early, they were aggressive often. And really, Gore, they were able to funnel pressure through Grave, who has had a fantastic start to his SPL promotional tournament. Valks will get one on the back end, but simply not nearly enough, and happiness emanating from the Yomi Tanuki booth after a game 1 win.
I think it's right, though, where you put some of the highlights, right? Because, you know, it was easy to talk about Shiπigami, especially when we're looking at a very lopsided game and the objectives are falling as fast as they are. Of course, it's the carry that's the one kind of leading the way for that. But when you look at what Grave was able to do, not only a very stellar performance, but then on top of the fact that the one kill up till the very end that the Valkyries had been able to pick up was going to be a really good kill for them.
Yep.
Until Grave just wipes out the duo lane
That's
at that
right.
point. And that suddenly... You go from a Valkyries team that right before that moment were trying to be active. I don't think I saw them make an active play on the map at all after that until the very end there with some of those fights. So I think that was like the kind of final nail in the coffin. Grave held up or they served up a couple of kills for him on a silver platter, and unfortunately for them, they did not have the confidence to go forward at any other point in that game.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I wonder if that game was trending towards, you know, out of control, even at that point. Really, I think mentally, though, you're able to snag a kill, you're able to get away with things, and then you end up losing 2 anyway to the jungler, to the Bastet that's run things. That's maybe where I think this game really steps over that slippery slope, right? We're kind of sliding, but I think we start to tumble at that point.
You fell through the ice.
Through the ice. You're on a whole different slippery slope at that point. Yomi Tanuki, they run over the Valhalla Valkyries in game 1. Best of 3, though. So adaptations needed from the Valks. We'll see what changes they make in game 2. Coming up next.
Top down, don't let them sun dry. I'm that and I said it before I had proof. Can't believe it till they see it, that's the sad truth. Hey, I be out of town all the time, on the blood rush. We be out of line, on the bounds, or the comeback. I be out of town all the time, what it does that. We be telling lies in your rhymes, where your funds at. Still lame, tryna kick it in the H like a field goal. Touchdown with finesse, that's a heel toe. Look, what you thought, think better. Sundress, no drawers, got the seat with her. Got my suede jumpsuit for the wind chill. Hot girl, but she blowing like a windmill. Truly, I ain't got a flex for the routine. Too clean with a plate full of poutine. Worry about me, can't help you. Way better when it's heard and it's felt too. Get my weed from the west, gold from the south. Show 'em how to make them triple O's from the couch. Counting on luck ain't a life plan. I'ma have the last laugh for a lifespan. Hey, I be out of town, out of time, out of blood rash. You be out of line, out of bounds, out of comeback. I be out of town, out of time, what it does ain't. You be telling lies in your rhymes where your funds at.
Really been going back to back to back to back to back to back to back. Like the neighborhood warriors.
I don't miss, I don't play none, I don't diss, I don't say none. I go swish, that's an A1. I stay with no A1. Tell the chef, I said thanks, tell I'm in the bank. Tell my mom I'm living good, tell my kids don't stress a thing. I go back to back on the drops, drop a lot, and she pack the bag, she shot till we drop. I just wake up, I don't say nothing, I'm on go, I don't stay long. I've been up now, that's a case wine. I've been down too, like this day strong. I got summer toys for the summer boy. I keep drummer boys in the summer boy. I keep making noise, I've been paranoid. This is God body, you can never void. I don't miss, I don't play none, I don't diss, I don't say none. I go swish, that's an A1. I stay with no A1. Tell the chef, I said thanks, tell I'm in the bank. Tell my mom I'm living good, tell my kids don't stress a thing. I go back to back on the drops, drop a lot, and she pack the bag, she shot till we drop. These beats are up and beat 'em, these bags you can't believe 'em. I never saw the country, but the money comes from Sweden. I meet 'em, then I leave 'em, I wake up, fight my demons. I never grew my circle, I can't trust you with my freedom. Give me locked down, keep you locked out, only when it's here. You look pop now, I get drops now, on the top now. In the wintertime, still go top down, I get free. I don't go bust and I go plain Jane, watch me ski. Yeah, I see you now, I could tell you watching me. I go ghost, but tell me I'm more like his Lee. Rockstar, baby, turn pop star. I don't miss, I don't play none, I don't diss, I don't say none. I go swish, that's an A1. I stay with no A1. Tell the chef, I said thanks, tell I'm in the bank. Tell my mom I'm living good, tell my kids don't stress a thing. I go back to back on the drops, drop a lot, and she pack the bag, she shot till we drop.
Well, in our first matchup of the SPL promotion tournament, it's the Yomi Tanuki, who take game number 1 up against the Valhalla Valkyries in a best-of-3 match. Still game 2 to come right around the corner, but game number 1, I mean, this felt almost done by the first couple of minutes there, Mifflin. A gank from Grave over towards the duo lane puts the Valkyries behind very early and is really able to help elevate the Yomi Tanuki up into a very early lead. It just felt from that point onward that it was an uphill battle for the Valkyries that they just couldn't win.
Yeah, I mean, we can glean one of two things from that game. Either this is going to be an entire weekend, or week rather, that is dictated by early jungle ganks. The jungler can just roll through and win you the game on like first or second wave. Or we could chalk that up to a series of unfortunate events that were essentially inflicted on the Valhalla Valkyries all the way across the map. Because when you look at the compositions, I mean, you just wouldn't expect the early game to go like this. It was Warchi getting caught out, the Naja from behind, of course, going to struggle. We had assumed that it was going to be Camazotz in the duo lane. It wasn't, and now that Naja is behind on legitimately second wave, you can't really sash aggressively at the Chronos anymore. Otherwise, Brave runs the map. It felt like WorstTurttle was just being led around by the nose throughout the entirety of this game, just trying to keep up with Brave's rotations. I was concerned about Yomi Tanuki's ability to initiate these fights. Why? They didn't have any trouble with it. It felt like every single ultimate Brave tossed out found at least one, every single bit of CC, and CC Light was this Yomi Tanuki composition, but every bit of it found its value as well. The Valhalla Valkyries just never got their feet under them. It started early and it ended early, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the last 10 minutes of this game were just victory lap. Yomi Tanuki dominated.
Yeah, I mean, the sieges from the Yomi Tanuki were just that simple. Brave was able to land those ultimates, and more often than not, it was on NILLL, on this Guan who didn't have purification beads, so he gets yanked back in, and then by the time he has any moment to react, he's already caught inside a River's Rebuke from Promise on the Yemoja, and then just absolutely nowhere to go beyond there. So Grave on this Bastet. There were questions as to what he was going to be able to do this game on this god, and I think he answered just about every single one of those. Rundas also on this Jormungandr. I know it's something that Dave kind of brought up early on in the game, but this new tablet that's been seeing its way for some of the mid lane mages also seems to have bumped up these solo lane guardians, giving that extra bit of damage and poke in that lane.
Look, tablet facilitates 4 magic drafts. When you've got some true damage in there, it doesn't really matter how many heart wards you build or how many pestilences you've got or any other form of magical defense. So long as each one of them has got the ability to apply at least a little bit of that damage, it'll be there. And they were able to diversify the magical damage at that. It wasn't all ability based. It wasn't just Jorm and Vulcan. Chronos able to apply it consistently through those auto attacks. So I think I'm probably okay with 4 magical drafts, and it's something we might see a good deal throughout this weekend. But I do want to see adjustments on field. Namely, I need to see it from the Valkyries. They drafted a composition that should have won early, and they lost out incredibly early. You can either slow down your early game if you know you can play the mid game a little bit better, and I think that is an option available to the Valkyries if they were to run back the exact same composition. Otherwise, I don't know. No notes for Yomi Tanuki. I mean, there was nothing to critique there. What did they end that game? 12-1, something along those lines. It was just a clinic from them.
Well, we'll see. So we jump into the Pixamans for game number 2. Now in game 1, the Valkyries banned away triple magic ADC. It was Olorun, Sol, and Freya that the Valkyries banned away from the Tanuki. Well, at least keep some of that by banning away Olorun and Sol once more. Yomi Tanuki changed things up by banning the Yemoja on their side, something that they picked up in game number 1 being in that first pick slot, but we'll make sure that that one does not go into the hands of the Valkyrie. It will be the same triple ban out of the Valks. They're not going to swap anything around for themselves. They're just not going to let the magical ADCs, aside from Chronos, slip its way through. But Maui has been left open by the Tanuki, and I wonder if the Valkyries are willing to go towards that as maybe a first pick now.
I mean, I am a massive Maui fan, and it's not just because Genetics was the world's MVP, all right? I mean, that god
He was
just
crazy on that
3
god, too.
pulls, a stun, a heavenly sprint built into the kit, the ability to appeal for
It's
your allies
time
that
to
haven't got
turn this
leaps. I feel
battle
like Maui
in our
it
favor.
has been correctly valued all the way up until this point just now, because Athena getting picked over him, I think, may be a bit criminal here. Athena, though, I think still an incredibly strong pick. The global presence, the simplified initiations are incredibly valuable. She's generally plug and play. So long as you're taunting into damage, and the majority of Smite gods have got the damage, you feel pretty good about having an Athena on your draft. This does, however, leave Yomi Tanuki in an incredibly powerful top 2 selection spot. I mean, they could take the Maui here, likely will stray away from it. Even if they want Maui, you're not really concerned about Valks going towards that double Guardian. So instead, grab yourself a Chronos. Feels all right. It's the only magical hunter still available. And potentially a Vulcan as well. Sure. Run it back.
Something I whipped up.
I mean, worked really well for them in game number 1. And you said no notes for them, no changes needed. The only one that's going to be a forced change will be away from the Yemoja from Promise, that because they had that one banned out themselves.
New labor.
But a new change up here by the Valkyries. going to be a Hercules. It's a couple alongside the Athena, so some extra initiation for the squad, no longer entirely reliant on dash taunt. If you can maybe find somebody with a pickup from Hercules, put them out of position, pull them back into the enemy team.
Tiamat.
But still sticking with this Tiamat, a god that's never really been known as that early game pressure in the mid, definitely plays towards that mid and late, so it feels like the Valks are once again kind of setting themselves up for maybe a more mid-late game style draft.
Yeah, Tiamat has just been a staple of the European SEC for a good while now. Love the scaling that the god brings. Also maneuvers the map incredibly well. That's what I was talking about, by the way. You can go ahead and forego Maui in the top 2, but should likely grab it in that 3rd slot, otherwise it would have been banned out. I like the draft from both of these teams. I mean, we saw what Yomi Tanuki were capable of doing with their top 2. Now, essentially, just I think upgraded their support into the Maui. So, first 3 for them, incredibly strong. But J-Mac, tell me this: are you privy to the Hercules jungle? Have you seen a good deal of that recently?
I've seen a little bit of it currently. I also remember what we were seeing kind of at the tail end of Season 9 as well. The damage output they could have. It's scary.
Yeah, I mean, Hercules jungle right now, I think, is just incredibly powerful. Some of the changes to his 3rd ability, his passive, giving over additional power, means that Hercules sure doesn't benefit from the assassin tree of, hey, we're just going to get flat pen as we level up, but still has great scaling on his abilities, maneuvers the map very well, gets some free CDR, so driving strike available a little bit more often than it once was. I would prefer to see Hercules out of the jungle, but we've seen Hercules out of solo as well. Ducky, as of recent, has been really tearing up the scene on that pick. No matter what, I think Hercules will find a home on this draft and put some pressure onto those beads of Yomi Tanuki, which should just facilitate this Athena. I'm excited to see how this composition rounds out, but the weakness of Tiamat that you bring up being that her early game is a little bit weaker, I think completely rectified if this Hercules does go into the jungle. This god is going to 1v2 you at level 3.
Well, with the bans finishing themselves out, Kleena and Lancelot banned by the Yomi Tanuki. Valkyries will take away the other 2 of what the Tanuki had from game number 1. Bastet and Jormungandr now banned out. So let's see something different from both the jungle and the solo. The new jungle will be Pele for the Yomi Tanuki. So a lot of AoE damage, a lot of burst damage that can come from this god as well to now try and square off against this Hercules. And a lot of self-sustain within that passive as well to maybe be able to try and stand up to box if it is end up being maybe that Hercules jungle you were eyeing towards.
Yeah, it has a lot of really good jungle clear, high maneuverability. In a game 1 that was completely dictated by Grave out of the jungle, just maneuvering the map, or out-maneuvering WorstTurttle, I should say. Pele's a pick that could do exactly that, and could do it early on. You don't really favor Pele in the early game in the 1v1 up against Hercules if it is going to be hurt jungle. If they were to line up against each other, you're probably favoring the Valks. With Ravana locked in, I'm not learning too much here. Traditionally, you would likely see Ravana in the jungle with Hercules out of solo, but with the mitigation build very popular right now, Ravana one of the better gods at going down that tree. Camazotz as well, keeping me guessing. Man, the Valkyries...
This does not answer anything.
Look, I get it. I've been on Twitter. I follow Zapman like everybody else. I know that Hunters aren't happy with the entire class right now, but ranged auto attacks are just really good. They're just really, really good for siege, for team fight, for forcing people to maneuver around you in the 5-on-5 engagement. This is twice now the Valkyries have decided to stray away from that. I couldn't say where any of those 3 picks, Hercules, Ravana, or Camazotz, are going. I could say that I would prefer to see Camazotz out of the dual lane, similarly to game 1. Didn't get to see it there. Who would I like to see in the soul lane? Between Ravana and Hercules, I think Hercules probably better out of the soul lane. Ravana's probably the worst soul laner of these 3, but I've got this sinking suspicion that it is going to be Ravana solo. I don't know, J-Mac. The Valks, they've got me guessing.
Look, man, I'm not buying the Hunter's not great propaganda. Now, I know that this
Oh,
was
they're not
like a whole math build and whatnot that came out, but there was a clip that circulated Twitter of a Jingwei doing 2,300 with a crit yesterday that
build was
popped
bad,
up.
though, man.
It can't,
Hydra's fail not? I'm not building
look,
that.
it can't be bad if it's critting for 2,300, regardless of that one. It is another double assassin composition, another warrior thrown in there, so the Valks still keeping us guessing as to exactly where these ones may line out there. Is it going to be Hercules or Ravana in the solo opposite, maybe in the dual lane or the jungle? No question, a bunch of wonders and big question marks there. Yomi Tanuki not really changing up their style, though, as far as it goes. They're still running the 4 magical once again and the single lone assassin as their physical damage. Talking a lot about ease of execution for the compositions here. have the Valkyries kind of made this harder for themselves in this style of comp, Mifflin?
The Valkyries' late game is going to be incredibly difficult, like 10 out of 10 on the difficulty scale, right? I mean, anytime you're really struggling to actually kill a Fire Giant or kill a Phoenix or grab these objectives, I think really doesn't bode well. But what the Valkyries have done and have made easier for themselves is the early game. I think there's a legitimate argument to be made that Yomi Tanuki won game 1 within 3 minutes. I think so. That shouldn't happen here. Looking at this draft, the three-man core, the Ravana, Camazotz, Hercules, the front line even, take Athena into account as well, that is so powerful in the early game that I cannot imagine a world where a Quadra magical composition, where I'm only thinking only 2 of them maybe are really going to be slotting Tablet of Destinies, should be dominating early on. So if the Valkyries are able to put the pressure on a Yomi Tanuki, then it doesn't really matter that your late game objectives aren't good if you can make sure late game doesn't come.
Well, can the Valkyries hold out early and keep this one going, give themselves a shot at game number 3, or are the Yomi Tanuki going to run away with it? Let's jump right into game number 2 with Dulcet and Gore.
You know, Gore, sometimes at these events we'll go entire days without seeing a game 3. We could see one right off the bat if the Valkyries are able to make now a Camazotz, I guess technically ADC, but Camazotz over in the duo lane with Rottwen on Athena again. Work here in game number 2. And Gore, I think you zoom out, you have a conversation around an event like this, especially very, very early on in year 10 of Smite, there's a conversation to be had around teams that are playing with a lot of synergy because they've played together and they're all familiar with one another and their play styles versus teams that have a better grasp on the meta. Of course, the teams that have both are going to be better suited versus teams that have found some sort of exploitable niche type of composition, and I'm wondering if that's what the Valkyries are hoping they've got here again in game 2.
Well, and I'm going to give them some credit because, you know, as Mifflin had mentioned, like I think Hercules, especially as a frontliner, is going to do pretty well. But the one I'm looking at, and this might be, I don't know if I want to call it rude to say it or not, but Warchi's on a god now that at the end of the day, it stays alive, right? Like, that
Sure
is the
does.
one thing that it has more than anything else, is that, you know, at level 5, you become one of the most unkillable gods that exists in Smite. So if you are having trouble, especially off that Naja game where things did not go well for you, now you are finally in a spot where you can start to fight back and at least survive that onslaught, if not maybe turn some of it around.
Yep. Valks, you know, Gore, I think Mifflin's not too far off. Super early in game number 1, feels like things were going sideways there. And a bit, not a bit different just yet. Seeing the book transform into the tablet is where my brain disconnected there just for a moment.
Are you going to have, like, bad flashback? I know there's an Artio in this game.
Because exactly what happened to me 1 day ago, and I don't want... Poor Herc over there and
you haven't had enough time. Like, there's a Band-Aid, but it's still scabbing over. The wound's too fresh.
It is. It's very fresh. But, man, Yomi Tanuki, how about that aggression? We saw a lot from Grave in game 1 core. All over the map. Already here, scrapping a bit with WorstTurttle. Now, I wonder if this is an opportunity for NILLL. Actually, I think, unfortunately, a minion drew tower aggro there, so no tower shots connecting with the Artio. WorstTurttle over to duo, but Grave is here as well. Can the Pele go in? Sure can! WorstTurttle knocked up. And another first blood from the Yomi Tanuki. And it's Grave yet again at level 3, making waves in duo.
And I wanted to say this going into it. I was actually surprised. You know, admittedly, the desk doing their best. Like, I think that the Valks here do have a lot of opportunity. I agree with Mifflin on that. But one thing that I think should have been said, at least in my eyes, and it was just that the top 3 from the Tanuki took away a lot of hope. I mean, look at what this Maui is able to do with the amount of damage that Shipigami. It might not get this kill, but they've just TKO'd Rottwen for a little while. And I think that's the real big deal to me, is the top 3 from the Tanuki getting to Chronos again. While their second pick, they got one of their best performers a second time. They got the Vulcan a second time. And then they got a higher priority, better support. And so you really did get, I think, some of the best top 3 that the Tanuki could have hoped for, could have asked for. And when I'm looking at Promise, you know, very similar when we say in essence and style, sometimes to what a Yemoja can bring, in that you yourself are maybe not the one. You're not the guy. But you are the
You're
setup.
not that guy, pal.
Everybody is going to be relying on you. And, you know, if we see even half of what Genetics was doing at Worlds from Promise here, man, it is going to be a good game for the Tanuki. So that's where, in my mind, the Valkyries need to shut things down. And again, it kind of falls onto the dual lane. Slow Shippigami, kill off Promise, set yourselves up for a much easier team fight from that point forward.
Remember, you know, Maui nerfed a bit, right? But still in a very strong spot.
He has been my go-to support all season so far, all year so far.
It's a great start. Oh, and the triple field working wonderfully here, though. NILLL able to driving strike out. And Grave with another.
Man.
Suddenly, the seeds of doubt sown over game 2. And Goretz still with this Pele. You know, jungle. The Des talked a bit about hunters and where they might stand. Now I play AD carry when I can in ranked, and I don't know, everyone's talking about I carry just about every game. Nah, that's a lie.
That's how the shoulders got so big.
That's right.
You're carrying all your
the squad.
teammates.
Yeah, that's incredibly not true.
What a crazy workout regime.
Jokes aside, it's actually, you know, jungle has often been the conversation of the strongest role, right? I mean, there's conversations amongst a couple, but jungle's always right there in it. And so you get a Pele who wants to be aggressive. 2 kills in one of the most impactful, if not the most impactful roles currently in year 10. Tanuki feeling just fine with the way game 2 is starting.
I mean, it's the 3 words that Mifflin said the most during our prediction / like year 10 / SBL / promo tournament talk.
Your one-stop shop for all things.
Yeah, for all things, whatever it was. The jungle carry meta, right?
Yep.
He just kept saying it, and with every team, he was able to bring it up because everyone's got a great jungle.
Well, this is what you need if you're the Valhalla Valkyries. Send 3 to solo, but you gotta get the kill. Rundas dodges out the Mystic Rush, but WorstTurttle still able to close that gap. Now Grave with it all to do. Woo. Shoved against the wall. The Valkyries able to answer back with a couple. That's something we didn't see from Rottwen at all in game 1, Gore. There was never that opportunity. Was use that global pressure to get away. Out of hell, needed by Warchi. And landfall, no good from Promise. Maybe just help him clear out some waves anyway. Fantastic from the Valhalla Valkyries, stems the bleeding, grabs a kill for the solo and the jungler. You're able to stabilize a bit of what happened in the early going.
That was very similar to the Shippigami kill that the Valkyries got in game 1.
Yep.
In that so many people are uncomfortably low. But you get it way earlier, so your team's not as far behind, so immediately you're off to a better start. You get a kill onto Grave, who is starting to pull ahead in the jungle, and now WorstTurttle finally able to be a little more active on the map. But most importantly, you didn't drop the kills that were there, right? There was no unnecessary fighting, nobody lingered. They got out when they were low, they got the kills that were necessary. They were able to rectify a lot of the scenarios that had started to get out of hand on the right-hand side. And then immediately after, Warchi showcases exactly why I like this Camazotz pick. It's just the survival mechanisms that Camazotz has means that even if you get a 3-4-man gank on right, nobody's going to be able to jump you in response to that. Because you just bat out of hell, get under the tower, you're safe for now. And so I like the way the Valkyries handled that engagement. I like the way they kind of handled the Tanuki. I just need to see that translate away from the lanes later on in the game and kind of cultivate into the jungle, into some of the neutral objectives, but very importantly into the team fights.
I wonder how the next couple of moments are going to go in lane here for NILLL on this Hercules. Rundas has finished the tablet. He's going to want to step forward and trade out a bit of damage. Warchi does not have bat out of hell yet. Very close to getting it back. Doesn't need it. So Shippigami might need to rewind. Standing and fighting, however, on the Chronos, we get full value from the pullback. Beads now off of Warchi as well.
Stun?
Stun not connecting, but it does! From Shippigami in the pullback. My goodness, Warchi somehow standing and fighting, still does not have bat out of hell. Just got it back, 1 second away from dying. Drop he does, a landfall. Falls onto WorstTurttle. Around the backside, the Tiamat, TheRayShadow had a mid lane, but Grave is getting it done in lane. A Mystic Rush out from WorstTurttle. Not enough, a triple for Grave, and he might keep it rolling. A quad potentially, as TheRayShadow has dropped the beads. Grave will drop 3 at least, and a 4th seems to just escape beneath the tower.
I mean, look, we're talking such a clean engagement. If Shippigami doesn't die there, the Valkyries, at that point, you're having bad conversation. Like, in my mind, your mental just drops severely. Luckily, they get that kill. You still lose 3 in the process, which isn't the cleanest route that you wanted to go. Tiamat being able to pick one up lessens the blow. But when you are, again, one of the safest gods in the game, but Warchi with no ult, beads get burned early in that fight. Promise is playing out of their mind with the pulls, and like you said, even though the stun from the leap on the Maui didn't connect.
Ooh, risky.
Elsewhere.
Risky TheRayShadow. TheRayShadow will live, though. Gets the kill on XD, but Grave, of course, Grave is here. Grave does not have ultimate. Not for just a moment. Doesn't have blink, but gets a kill nonetheless. Great rotation out, a duo from Promise. And oh no, now Grave does have ultimate. And a double kill on the Pele. 7-1 for the jungler, the Yomi Tanuki. Knows something about Graves. And he's put the Valks in 7 so far in the first 9 minutes.
So in game 1, Grave had a really good game, but there was a little more diversification in terms of where the kills were going. There's no arguments about where the carry is coming from right now.
No.
7 kills on the board, all 7 for the jungler. I mean, the presence right now on this Pele is just insane. And again, it goes back to what Mifflin was saying, that jungle carry meta. If you are able to get off to a start like this, even with that spill early on over in right, this is a really, really good location, I guess, to have your jungler at. Like, not just in terms of the game map, but really on the actual map itself. The presence in left, the presence in mid, the ganks have been on point.
Well, there you go. That's something we didn't see a lot of, Gore, in the first game.
Yeah.
Now I've seen a couple of times in a row for the Valhalla Valkyries is Vulcan traditionally punishable, right? Didn't have beads, just now came back up for XD. Why not? Throw a little bit more pressure there towards mid, see if you can get something, and you do. You get something back. But this lurking threat of a 7-1 Pele at any corner of the map at any given time, got to be something the Valks consider, and I think Warchi considering there. Might have swooped in one final time, but not knowing exactly where Grave is, big threat.
I was wondering the same thing, not just because, like, he's got wards, right, to maybe catch out a rotation from Grave. Not really that deep, so by the time you spot them, Grave's probably already on top of you. But I was watching Shippigami as well, because I was wondering how aggressive they were feeling themselves. Because at that point, he goes in for another swoop, goes that deep. I think I hit the rewind, get all my cooldowns back, and like renew the onslaught.
Right.
I think that there's a moment, maybe an alternate universe somewhere now, where we see that fight happen.
An alternate timeline.
Yeah, instead they just kind of fizzle out and walk away from each other.
Now the Tanuki have been on it with every single objective core. I don't think they've dropped one. They've gotten 3 or 4 Furies over the course of a couple of games, of course. Got the Gold Fury early in this game, which is already a different trend.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking Gold Furies of past have been, what, like 15 minutes or so? 10, 15 minutes you're considering it. We're talking like 5, 6 minute Gold Furies at points in the last couple of games. Granted, you know, there have been a few extra kills maybe than we're used to that have given the Tanuki a bit more presence over on left. Speaking of left side presence, it's WorstTurttle, and it's Shippigami. Got the rewind, we'll just get into it, and oh no, it's Grave on a 7-kill game. Hoping to add another, but Warchi able to leap up and over the wall. It's the same scenario though. We're bat out of hell, so close to coming back. It's not there. Won't be needed this time, and that was a lot of chunk damage from Grave. It'll force the Valkyries back, and an Oni Fury stands maybe to be stolen by Rottwen.
That's going to be a lot of effort for an Athena though, right? I mean, your shield wall can do a decent amount of damage. Your reach is the best thing you've got for it. But if they mistime it enough that a reach could steal it, then that's maybe on the Tanuki more than it is on Rottwen. So really well played, I think, for the Tanuki. Graves rotation. Shippigami, even though you can't time it better, that rewind getting off the way it did.
That was close.
Gets him out of there and hits the reset. Still had to use the beads though, so definitely in a more precarious position now. But do you really care? I mean, you TKO'd so many, you got another objective. You still got good damage, and it doesn't seem like even with the amount of pressure the two of them can apply in duo, Shippigami's feeling too heavy-handed.
Well, we're going again in mid. The Valhalla Valkyries have just run at XD over the last few minutes of this game. 0-3 on the Vulcan, and a lot of those kills have landed on TheRayShadow. Gore, we did not see any Tiamat presence in game 1. Maybe not anything to do with TheRayShadow and the way they played the game, just did not have an opportunity. now you're starting to stack up some kills. Expectations potentially starting to mount. However, gives a very clear objective to Grave on the 7-1 Pele, and a clear target to run down later on in team fights.
And it shows the downside of a Vulcan. Game 1, we got to see the upside, especially of an unanswered Vulcan. A lot of burst damage, a lot of clean plays. There's actually a moment in the very first kill, and it all depends on cooldowns, but XD might have been able to like 180, hit the backfire, and get out. Now
early.
you have to play carefully.
Oh, the Earthshaker was a bit early. Didn't matter.
No way they're going for more.
Valkyries won't steal it away. It's Runic Bomb. Over to Rundas, who is indeed stacking up that tablet. Was actually a level behind earlier in this game because WorstTurttle ganked over in solo, is stabilized just fine. Tablet on Artio. Sends shivers down my spine. And it's worked just fine. Look at Shippigami damage. Warchi desperately needed that bat out of hell, and Shippigami's positioning here. Shippigami could 2v1 this.
Oh, yeah.
If given the opening. He could just turn and start sending some damage towards Rottwen, but you gotta play this perfectly. The taunt doesn't set up for any damage. Stun, dodged out, and rewind from Shippigami. And that'll open up the disengage from the Valhalla Valkyries. 8th kill of the game for Grave, by the way. NILLL has died off over in solo. Fantastic sidestep from Shippigami. Landfall, no good. It's another miss from Promise. And the Chronos, for now, able to get out, but jumped on by WorstTurttle. As a rotation in from TheRayShadow has handed some assistance to the Valks on left.
They needed to invest a lot to get that, though. I mean, look, you've got 4 ults that are down, you've got relics that are down. It takes a long time to get that, and it's in a position where Shippigami almost gets those kills. Unfortunately, almost doesn't cut it, right? I mean, you are right there. He even uses the ult aggressively and tries to make things happen, but unfortunately for them, that ult actually ends up coming to bite them because they don't have it later to maybe immune or get out of some of those engagements. Luckily for Shippigami, it's not like you're in the same position. I mean, last game, you were talking about it, after the second ring, starting to feel a little more online, a little more damage. Went for the Book of Thoth immediately here, so has been stacking up. It's been a little bit more of a slow play. 2 deaths doesn't make you feel great about that, but I think that you are already playing for the long haul with an item like that in your second slot. So I don't think Shippigami's sweating just yet. I think it's uncomfortable, but you can definitely bounce back.
Agreed. They're going to be doing some stacking, doing some swinging a bit later on. Wonder, though, the pacing of this Pele. 3 levels up over WorstTurttle. Looking like... Say again?
Just got another kill.
Just got another kill, that's right, over on NILLL, over in solo. At 15 minutes, level 18. I mean, outpacing everyone in this game. The farm has been there as well as the kills. And right on time, Yomi Tanuki, they've impressed me so far today. Granted, they've been playing with massive leads. However, right on time for every single objective. Have not dropped a Fury yet. Not only this game, but this set. It's not looking like this will be the first. XD has been dropping those Earthshakers as secure every single time. Should not be out confirmed by anyone. However, the Tanuki backing away. Our first big team fight is Earthshaker has found NILLL. It's found nothing. 4-man taunt in from Rottwen. It's the GOAT. It's Goatwin setting up for the Valhalla Valkyries from a deficit from the depths. It's Rottwen who's found it. And the rest of the Valks follow in. 3 kills drop. Now Shippigami, he'll be left to the wolves. And the Valks sweep through 4.
And they do exactly what Mifflin had highlighted on the desk, what they were talking about going into this game, which is not falling behind in the early game. Admittedly, maybe trying to get ahead in the early game didn't happen as easily as they would have liked. But then you get to the team fight stage, and if you get an engage like that, I don't care what your backup is. If your support pulls something like that, you've got to get something done. And they stepped up to the mark. They do exactly what they need to there. And not only get themselves, I think, a bunch of necessary kills to not just right the ship, but kind of put themselves back in a position that we can start talking about them in a positive light again, but also to get their first objective of the set. I mean, this is a really big deal for the Valkyries, and to continue pushing on, they've got a pretty favorable map state right now in terms of tower health. Admittedly, right tier 2 is already gone, so that doesn't feel great, but if you can maybe put some pressure on mid, pressure on left, you can make up for that deficit, start being a little more present for the neutral objectives. Just need more plays. Look, and Rottwen has been one of my favorites. I mean, when we got to see him sub in for Hex Mambo last year during the Phase 2, the Summer Masters.
That's right.
That was a really important showcase to be able to say, like, hey, yes, this team's really good with Trixtank. Trixtank's a great player. But Rottwen could fill in those shoes pretty damn well.
Yep.
And now putting him on another team. I expect to see more of that from the Athena.
With a mustache like that, Gore, 4-man taunts are simply expected from Rottwen. Look at it, majestic, just peeking over the top of the computer screen.
You have to give a lot of credit as well,
I love
because
it.
not a lot of people can rock a mustache and have it actually look good. Rottwen
What
nails
about
it.
me, Gore? I had a mustache for a while last year.
So you looked like a very stereotypical ski guy.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll take it. Pyromancer now grabbed by the Valks. Gore, I think the last couple of objectives that we've now seen are the first couple that the Valkyries have gotten so far this set. Completely flips this game around. Even after that fight and after that Fury, the Valks were down about 2,000 gold.
Yeah.
Now, first Pyromancer of the set for the Valkyries. Potential for game 3 just around the corner as life arrives for the Valkyries. However, is it death? No, not just yet. But WorstTurtle's got to get out, and Rottwen ulted away as well. So the Athena's out of the fight for just a moment. Rundas still running the front line for the Yomi Tanuki. Shell gets used. TheRayShadow desperately trying to disengage, and a stun on the follow-up from Promise. Hands one to Shippigami.
Warchi is just not in a position to get out of here. Good couple of kills from the Tanuki. And this is where the downside.
Right to
You
FG.
just picked up 2 clean objectives. Well, maybe not clean. You picked up 2 great objectives from the Valkyries. And now you might end up losing one just because of the fact that that fight goes around.
Now remember, Rottwen has Runic Bomb here. Consider that a 1,000 damage burst, so has a chance to fight into the fight.
Used it.
Great target for the Yomi Tanuki. He did use the Runic Bomb, doesn't matter. Now, I don't know, you do have an Excavate. Gonna be a bit different from being able to walk forward and drop the Runic Bomb. Range, not all that crazy on the bomb anyway. NILLL hovering around the corner.
Okay.
They've taken him out, and a damage from WorstTurttle. How has this happened? Fire Giant given to the Yomi Tanuki, though. NILLL not given the chance, or took the chance. Fell just a bit short. And the ebbs and flows of game 2. Ridiculous fight from the Valkyries. Now flipped right around on a nice mid-fight from the Tanuki.
I'd be a little nervous as well if I were the Tanuki. Looking at it, seeing that it was confirmed essentially just by an auto, the Telkine's ring damage coming out from Shippigami, not from anything that was big and bursty and controllable. If NILLL was maybe a little more well-timed there, we're talking a very different game, at least game state that we're looking at. So the Tanuki in a really comfortable spot. Not as comfortable as last time, right? Last time we're 20 minutes in. You're talking 15,000 gold, a Fire Giant. That's the second one you've gotten in the game, and you've already knocked down the majority of the towers. You still have an exposed Phoenix right now to work on if you really want to. Pressure on right could be nice, but your minion wave is pushed up to your tier 1. It's not going to be going too well for you. Also interesting to see NILLL going for this without the Bastions. Again, it's maybe scaling, not as big a deal, but 15% mitigation per Bastion there.
Yep.
Just take them out. Maybe makes it a little clearer. Doesn't seem like they're going to have too much problem after you get a little bit of assistance from Warchi, so they do group up. But now you're at the downside that some of these other towers, you're talking a gold lead that's going to just grow and grow and grow. And it's this tier 2 siege that the Tanuki are going to be able to start here and left and maybe over in mid if they want to. That is going to amass a little bit more of a comfort zone.
Man, that is a mean hook from Promise. Keeps Rottwen right in place for so long. You have to be careful here. There's a lot of damage for the Yomi Tanuki. Earthshaker off the mark once again from XD. Landfall onto 2 though. It's an Aegis from TheRayShadow that keeps the team out on the map just a bit longer. Massive pull from NILLL, but doesn't matter. On a double from Shippigami. And the Tanuki, they have gone through it this game. So have the Valhalla Valkyries. They will not look for the end. Instead, will just grab the long lane Phoenix.
Man, but this burst has been insane. I mean, you mentioned it. Mean hook that comes down from Promise. Just to grab people. That's one of the biggest strengths that Maui is going to bring. And if you're hitting them consistently the way Promise has, I mean, we're talking from minute 1 now. It has just been very clean. They had 40 seconds without TheRayShadow, without NILLL. Admittedly, stacked on that was like 10 seconds without Rottwen. Maybe a position you're thinking of missed opportunities that they could have just gone in, potentially for the Titan. Instead, they get more gold. They're going to get a second Phoenix. They might get more kills.
Yeah, unfortunately with Athena taunt, when your team is like really up against it, you hate bringing people in towards you, right? That's what happens with Rottwen. Just a moment ago, that'll be mid-Phoenix gone. Yeah, 4-man taunt. Still probably feels pretty good for Rottwen if you're able to find one at this point, but you're going to need the burst damage to follow up. Yomi Tanuki have wrestled control back of game number 2 here. for a double elimination tournament. So if the Valhalla Valkyries end up dropping here in Game 2, will not be their tournament and SPL lives. Man, the weight of this tournament, heavy. I mean, talk about changing your life for a year. These players, you're in the SPL, salary, playing these games, that's your life, your job for a year. You're playing for a lot if you're these teams, and the Tanuki have really stepped up.
Outside of Worlds, this is the biggest change like to your life tournament that can happen. Right? I mean, you're talking for some of these guys maybe showing up in the SEC, some maybe taking a break and seeing what happens, or getting a salary, having a job, moving to Georgia and playing consistently against the best of the best. And when we got to see it last year,
and hanging out with Gorma.
Well,
that's the prize in and of itself.
It?
It is.
Some
I
people
would play
argue,
in this tournament.
I'm one of those people.
No.
There are people that willingly hang out with me, and that blows my mind.
You're married.
Yeah,
someone
she chose that.
Someone chose it forever. It's wild. And the Valks, the Tanuki, Gore, they're fighting for that opportunity right now. Tanuki in a more comfortable spot to advance through the upper bracket. The Valhalla Valkyries, they're going to need a miracle in Game 2. You wonder if Rottwen has already made that miracle happen earlier to flip the game around. And then the fight in mid that just went a bit sideways. I want to point out for XD, alternate timeline picked up, one of my favorite items. Granted, it's like a 5 or 6 minute cooldown after you procced it, so you only get it every once in a while. But the Vulcan has just been getting jumped on constantly. That'll give XD another opportunity. Excavate! Oh, that was close yet again from NILLL. Not a steal though. Fire Giant wears off, picked up, and a kill onto the solo laner. That just softens up the defense of the Valkyries. And only one Phoenix left to drop between the Tanuki and their first win of the weekend.
Very easy opportunity. Look, 40 seconds without NILLL. You're not going to have to worry about him if you can get the fight going soon enough. You got the Fire Giant on 4 or on 5, and immediately you're running in. I think with Grave at 8 and 2, you have a lot of damage capabilities. I'm keeping my eyes specifically on Promise for a pull.
And you might not even need the right side Phoenix. Just one more fight, and TheRayShadow on the other end of an Aegis is death. It's a killing spree for XD, and it's an Earthshaker down onto the Titan. The assistance from the Titan enough, and here's your alternate timeline as XD is back on the map and might actually get a kill on a double from Shipigami. And that'll give a Game 2 and a set 1 win to the Yomi Tanuki.
I'd give that item a lot of hell last year because there were so many times where we saw an alternate timeline get procced and then they just killed you again. But seeing it come back, get more damage, I mean, they invested so much to kill a Vulcan that wasn't going to die in the moment. They jumped deep in there, tried to get rid of XD, maybe trying to get rid of some of the damage, but he'd already dropped the ult, had dropped a Magma Bomb already. He knew only, like, really at that point is a backfire left. And so a heavy investment into that. Unfortunately, he just comes back and does it again. And I think that feels really solid for them. The overarching theme I got from this is that, you know, as Mifflin was maybe talking on the desk, not having that ranged physical damage, depending on where your thoughts are on Hunters, definitely seemed like it was lacking a little bit there. They had to get really close in for all of their engagements. And while that one was way cleaner from the Valkyries, I do think that maybe you have to kind of bring that to the forefront of the light, look at the books, maybe watch the tape back before you play again, I believe, tomorrow, and see where you can go.
It's a good little time. Speaking of books, I love at the end of this game, Promise immediately takes out the pen, the notebook comes out, and we're jotting down notes about something. Look, we've made predictions as far as who we expect to advance and where we would put our money if we were able to. There's teams who are in here with kind of a scrappy, something to prove, almost chip on their shoulder. I think that's where I'd put this Yomi Tanuki team, and that's a threatening team to play against. Grave, my MVP for game number 2 here personally, had a hell of a set and a great way to start off the weekend. In the SPL promotional tournament, Yomi Tanuki, they get it done, 2-0. That's it for Gore and I on the desk. We'll break this one down.
For our first match of the weekend, or I should really say starting of the weekend, moving through, is going to be the Yomi Tanuki 2-0 up against the Valhalla Valkyries. And what felt like an extreme roller coaster of a mid-game there, Mifflin, because you look at the start of that game, it's again, Yomi Tanuki finding themselves with a really powerful lead, getting things going. And then one single team fight, one massive play by Rottwen sets up the Valkyries for a potential immediate comeback. A 4-man taunt to the Gold Fury leads to a 4-man wipe after. And then the very next team fight after, they're chasing XD, who's already like 0-3 by that point, under Tier 1 tower. And the Valkyries lose that fight for the Yomi Tanuki to climb themselves back in. And then eventually carry that momentum back for themselves to take game number 2.
Yeah, I mean, take it all the way back, right? You got to talk about TheRayShadow's performance out of mid. Actually got the better end of XD a multitude of times. I believe it was 2 solo kills, tower diving this Vulcan. Very clean, especially considering the state of the game that he had decided to start making those plays in. TheRayShadow's duo lane was already starting to struggle. Yomi Tanuki, I believe, were off to a 2-0 start. You're thinking, oh no, is it happening again? Are we going to get outscaled and dominated in the early game? TheRayShadow says, absolutely not. I'm going to try and make something happen on my own. Actually established a pretty nice lead for his team through the mid lane. XD struggling to keep up in that regard. Otherwise, it was Yomi Tanuki getting back to their standards. Grave outmaneuvering WorstTurttle on the map, getting involved on both side lanes consistently, getting active around that duo. But you're right to bring up that 4-man taunt. From there, I thought to myself, 4-man taunt, 4-man wipe, head back to base, grab some objectives, roll it back to even. You're feeling pretty decent about it. But it was an overstay for the Valhalla Valkyries approaching that tier 2 tower and giving Yomi Tanuki essentially manufactured 1v5s over and over, where they pick one, chase out, immediately afterward try and catch Warchi. Warchi used his beads a little bit too early, not only losing his life, but his defensive relic, which opens the door for Yomi Tanuki to go ahead and move themselves over towards that fire giant. This one was just execution diff. I really did not like, in particular, the selections from Warchi. He is a ADC player and has been for an incredibly long time. This guy likes hunters, at least so far as I can tell over the last decade of watching his stream, but wouldn't play them here today. And it felt like the Naja really struggled to get active. The Camazotz as well just wasn't quite able to be that threat in the back line. If you were going to let one magical hunter through regardless, and it seems like that was the strategy for the Vows, decided to ban 3 magical hunters in first and 3 on both second and first pick, why let the Chronos through? If you're going to put an assassin in that lane, why not let the magical hunters through that are a little bit easier to kill? I'm not saying let Soul, just Apparate's hard to deal with, and Freya's got great late game scaling, but Oleron, much easier to dive, Freya, much easier to dive. If you're going to put emphasis on that lane, if you're going to put an assassin in that lane every time, I think you'd have been better suited putting a magical hunter against you that you actually had some sort of way to kill.
I mean, it also feels like if you're going to let one through, why give it to the enemy team at that point? Take the Chronos for your mid laner. I'm not sure maybe what the call was on there, but Yomi Tanuki are able to find themselves the victory in set number 1 of the day, and we've got them standing by for a post-game interview with Dave.
That's right. It's promise, support for the Yomi Tanuki here with me. Mifflin, big fan of yours. Immediately after that game, too, I saw the pen come out, the notebook came out. What could you possibly have to take notes on after a game like that? Feels like you guys kind of steamrolled your opponents, or do you still feel like there's stuff to learn after a set like that?
No, like 100%. It's not just about this team, because I know we're 9th seeded, but we don't view ourselves that way. I'm genuinely here to win, and we've been VOD reviewing every day for the past 2 months. I've been doing a lot of alone VOD reviewing as well, working on my shot calling, and we're definitely going to watch this game back because it's not about what they even do right or wrong. It's just about putting ourselves into their perspective and see how we could have played it from their position with their comp as well. And there's just a lot to learn from, and I can't wait to see the other sets that go on as well, because I know I'm going to learn a lot from what they draft as well, because we're kind of in the dark in that we haven't scrimmed too many teams. So. Yeah.
That's maybe one of the best mindsets I've heard coming into an event like this. That's very impressive to hear. Grave standout performance, I think, in game number 2 there. Maybe you can speak to this for him personally, maybe the team in general. Do you feel like this team, you mentioned it, 9th seed, has something to prove? Do you think there's a chip on the shoulder and the mindset with the Yomi Tanuki, maybe Grave specifically, and the rest of the team?
I mean, we definitely have something to prove, but at the end, I don't know how much I care about the other people's opinions. It's been like this for a lot, and we know who we can beat, and a lot of teams know that we've been beating them too. Not even with this roster, but the core of this roster. So I don't really care if I have to prove myself or not. And
it's a scary team. Promise it was a great way for you guys to start off your week, I guess, technically. 2-0 start. Excited to see what you guys get done. Best of luck in your future matches. Back to the desk to wrap this one up.
Very different mindset than what we're used to seeing from some teams out here. They're like, we're just coming out here. We're gonna play our game. We're gonna do our best. If we win, we win. If we don't, we don't. But coming out here as the 9th seed, saying that from Promise they don't see themselves the 9th seed, but also just we're still taking notes. Even if our wins are 24, 25-minute stomps, we still have stuff to improve on. All the personal VOD review he said he's been doing, the VOD review as a team, and again to highlight with this squad, Mifflin. this was not the mid laner they had signed up to come to this event with. This is a sub mid laner coming in, XD, in place of Spreen. And this team is looking pretty strong for the quote-unquote 9th seed team.
Yeah, I am a massive Promise fan now. I mean, legitimately. I will speak earnestly for a moment. One of my least favorite things to hear from competitors when they come out to events like this is, yeah, we're just having fun. We just showed up, you know, free trip, little vacation. We're gonna go out there. We're gonna have a good time. No, I don't. Why? Why would you ever say that? Promise came up and said, look, we may not be a favorite, but we are gonna be trying to win regardless. That is our entire goal. Try and win and improve. That is a true competitor's mindset, and honestly, a great look for the guy.
Well, with that one, the Yomi Tanuki do get to continue moving on in the winner's bracket. We got our second match of the day coming up next. It's going to be the Aru Scorpions and the Athenian Sages. So stick around. We'll be back in just a few.